Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Sophia, and I make book-related videos, mainly videos about mystery thriller books, but a little bit of everything. And today, I'm back with the Spindrift on a very, very hot fall day to chat about all the books that I read in the month of September. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Quick note, I usually film my main channel videos, not my vlogs, over there. Let me know if you prefer this or that better. The lighting is slightly better here, but I can make it work either way. So let me know if you have a preference. And as per usual, I will be going from lowest rated to highest rated. So this month was kind of meh. I did read 10 books. But most of them were very, very middle of the road until the very end of the month when I read an absolute banger of a book. So, not my best reading month, but I'm hoping that the banger of the book at the end of September means that October is going to be even better. And still, I am very happy with reading 10 books in the month of September. That's pretty solid for me, right where I want to be to meet my reading goals for the year. So as per usual, I will be going from lowest rated to highest rated. So we're starting with my least favorite books of the month. First up, we have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. This one came in at 2 stars, unfortunately. I read this for my reading vlog where I was reading wedding-related mystery thrillers during my wedding week. And for the most part, I was pretty entertained with this until it fell off a little bit of a cliff at the end. So the premise of this one, we're following a married couple. Already forget their names, which is not a good sign. One of them is a defense attorney. She's very high powered. She works in Washington, D.C. And the other one is her husband, who is a wannabe writer and kind of doesn't really have his life together. And basically, his mistress is murdered and he is on trial for the crime. And she ends up essentially defending him. And we go from there. This whole relationship is extremely dysfunctional, so don't come into this hoping you're getting any type of happy marriage story. Although most mystery thrillers that kind of follow marriage or weddings don't quite follow the most idyllic relationships. And what I will say about this is I was pretty in it. I was gonna finish. Wanted to know what was gonna happen, but the end to me just felt so obvious. like if you gave me the premise, I would have told you something was going to happen at the end, and that was the thing that happened at the end. I just don't understand why this has like a million reviews and is 4 stars. I don't know. I guess I just didn't quite understand this one, but for me, it was only a 2-star read, unfortunately. Next, we have A Cinnamon Falls Mystery by R.L. Kilmore. This is a cozy fall mystery, and we're following our main character, Nia, who is coming back to her very small hometown of Cinnamon Falls after living in the city. And she basically, her boyfriend, it turns out that he was in fact married. And so she wants to get out of that situation, wants to go back to her cozy place, which is, of course, Cinnamon Falls. But when she gets there, the owner of the diner, which is kind of the central place in Cinnamon Falls, think Stars Hollow, is murdered. And she kind of starts to look into things, and she also starts to rekindle a relationship with her ex-boyfriend, who has been a police detective in Cinnamon Falls for quite a long time. So I enjoyed this one, although I kind of felt like it was trying to do too much. It was trying to be a cozy mystery, a second chance romance in a very fall vibey book. And I think it did everything in like a 5 out of 10 way. And I think it had the potential, if it would have just like lent into one of those things, to be really, really fun. But I think trying to achieve 3 things in a short book was just a little bit challenging. So I gave this one a 3 stars. It was a fun fall read, but it isn't something that I think I'm going to remember a year from now, or something that is going to stand out for me or be a reread. Next, we have Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I do have a dedicated review of this one on my channel if you're interested in more of my detailed thoughts. But this is about a 27-year-old, I'm forgetting her name, but 27-year-old female. She is Basically, she's a law school dropout. She's come back to live with her parents in Woodstock, Vermont, and it's fall. It's around Halloween time, and one night somebody breaks into her parents' house and tries to kill her. Because of the attack, she is given the horrible news that she can either undergo surgery right now, but will probably die on the table, or she can have 7 days left to live and will almost certainly die at that time, but she'll have 7 last final days of her life. And she decides to go forward with the 7 days and try to solve her own murder. This was a fun, pacey time. It is Holly Jackson's adult debut, which unfortunately I could kind of tell by how young the main protagonist read. And that made it a little bit unbelievable for me, unfortunately. However, I did really, really enjoy the end of this book. So I think there's a lot of potential for Holly Jackson as an adult thriller writer, but her first one didn't quite work for me. So I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. Next, we have Days You Were Mine by Claire Leslie Hall. So this author wrote Broken Country, which is one of my favorite mystery thrillers of the past year. But this one is actually just a contemporary novel. It's a dual perspective book about an adoptee and their bio mom. The adoptee's name is Luke, and in his perspective, we're following him meeting his adoptive mom, Alice, for the first time. And then we also get Alice's perspective in the past when she became pregnant with Luke and kind of the decision to give him, to make an adoption plan for him. So we kind of follow the interplay between them. There was nothing bad about this book at all. Like, it was solidly written. I think it said a lot of really interesting things about adoption. I liked the dual perspective. It was pretty immersive, but it just wasn't a book that I was like deeply in love with. I don't think it's a book that I'm going to remember a lot about, unfortunately, which I feel like a broken record saying that, but that feels like a lot of the books this month, unfortunately. I will read Claire Leslie Hall's other book that I haven't read yet, which just came in the mail the other day. It's called Pictures of Him. But for me, so far, Broken Country is by far her best. So I ended up giving that one a 3 stars. Next, we have A Killer Motive. This was a thriller that I read on audio, and it's about a woman named Stella. She has kind of been haunted by a decision in her past, which was when she was a teenager, she snuck her brother out of their house so that he could go to a party on the beach. But it was that night that her brother went missing and has never been seen. We flash forward to Stella in present day. She's the host of a true crime podcast, and she is kind of trying to give closure to other families when she doesn't have closure for this horrific event that happened to her. And her brother, obviously. I thought that this was a really entertaining time. I think that the podcast element was really fun on audio, so I would recommend listening to it in that format. I like the little twists and turns in here. It just felt a little bit generic for me. I don't know that there was a lot in here that was like shocking or super different from other thrillers I've read. So it was just a little bit average for me, but I did give this one a 3.5 stars. Next, we have The Wedding People by Allison Espach. This is I would say, contemporary novel about a woman who is going through a lot of life stressors, including a recent divorce, and she decides to book a room at a very fancy inn in order to end her life. But when she gets there, there is a very fancy wedding going on, and she befriends the bride and a couple of other people in the wedding, and she kind of starts to reevaluate things and what kind of led to her making the decision and kind of change her life, essentially. Most people love this book. 5-star read. For me, it was fine. It was a 3.5 star. I did like what it said about wedding culture. I did like what it said about friendship, but it was one that I enjoyed a lot more on audio. This book is very, very dialogue heavy. And so I think it being like a spoken word book made more sense to me and made it a little bit of a more engaging reading experience. But I don't know. Again, this one didn't really stand out for me, unfortunately. There was a lot of, there were a few really irritating, like forced romance plots at the end as well that kind of made me drop it a little bit too. But a lot of people really, really love this. So if the premise sounds interesting to you, I would still pick it up because I seem to be the unpopular opinion when it comes to this book. Next, we have Forget Me Not by Stacey Willingham. This is the Stacey Willingham that I've picked up after reading All the Dangerous Things, which is one of my absolute favorite books of the year and a book that I deeply, deeply, deeply loved. This is her new release. It just came out. And we follow a woman who lives in New York City, but she decides to go back to her hometown when her mother is in an accident. And when she's there, she starts getting kind of engrossed in her older sister's murder that happened when they were growing up. People think that they have solved the case, they know what happened to her, but as she starts to look into it, more questions arise. And she decides to take a job at a winery, which is where her sister was working at the time where she died. And that makes for a very eerie backdrop for her, also putting together some pieces of what happened to her sister at the winery. The writing in this was excellent, as Stacey Willingham's writing is. But I did feel that the ending was a little bit rushed and muddled. And I did feel like there were a few too many reveals at the end, and I would have preferred some more throughout them. So it wasn't quite my favorite of her work. I did give it 3.5 stars, but it was still a very enjoyable read, and I will continue to read all of her thrillers. Next, we have The Measure by Nikki Erwick. Yes, this is a book that I read for my in-person book club that I do with people that live in this area. And the premise of this one is one day everybody wakes up and they have a box on their doorstep with a piece of string inside. And the length of the string corresponds with how long your life will be. A short string means a short life, long string means a long life. And we follow kind of the fallout of that. What would different people want to know? How would it affect certain things, from, being in the military to human relationships to all sorts of different things to politics. I think this was an excellent book club book, and it led to a really, really interesting discussion. Everyone had different feelings about would they want to know what was in the box? Would they not? I think the end was a tad over sentimental, and I could kind of see that the author was trying to bring on some tears, which was fine, but irritated me just a little bit. So I did drop it from 5 to 4, but it was still a really, really solid read, and one that I loved reading through, thinking about, and of course discussing with my bookish friends. And my favorite book of the month, the true highlight of this month, was East of Eden by John Steinbeck, an absolute banger. And I'd like to think that he would have described it in the 40s when he wrote this, 50s. I'm not sure, 30s. I'll put it on the screen. This is a book about a couple of families that live in the Salinas Valley, kind of around in California, around the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s. And it's just a family saga over years. It has one of the best literary villains I've ever read. If you know, you know. And at the end, I was full on in tears, and Tyler had to come check on me. So that's what I can say about this. It's really a hard book to sell to you because so much happens, and this is about so many things: family relationship, human decisions, good and evil. Like, I could go on and on. All I have to say is, if you love a family drama, if you love a book that will make you cry, pick it up, because it was absolutely stunning in every possible way. I absolutely loved it. It will be in my favorite books of the year, and just incredible. Highly recommend. So with that, that was my September wrap up. I would love to know what you read in the month of September. Have you read any of the books that I have chatted about? And if you made it to the end of this video, leave me a tree emoji for the tree on the cover of East of Eden. And I will see you guys very soon with another video. Bye.